A teacher in Fresno has died of rabies after she was bitten by a bat in her classroom. Officials say she was trying to rescue a bat in her classroom when it bit her. The incident happened in October, but it took a month for symptoms to show up, and then she died days later at the hospital. For more on this, let's bring in Fox 11 medical contributor Dr. Michael Daignault. Good to have you.
Thank you.
How rare is this, and could this have been prevented?
So about 10 people a year die of rabies, so it's not very common. But in LA, the primary carrier of rabies are bats. And so in the ER, oftentimes we'll have patients that say that they were camping, they were in a tent, they woke up, there was a bat fluttering around in the tent. They're not sure if they were bitten or not. Sometimes the bite marks are very hard to see. So in cases like that, we always do the 4-dose vaccine to prevent the rabies from taking hold, because once you get symptomatic, it's rapidly progressive and nearly always fatal.
Always fatal.
Always fatal,
Because
yeah.
my question was going to be, did she have underlying health conditions that contributed to her death?
I don't think it would have mattered. This disease, this virus is just so devastating for mammals, not just humans. So, you know, once the symptoms start, it's rapidly progressive, and there's not much you can do aside from supportive care. That's why it's so important to vaccinate if you were exposed or, you know, even in a room or a tent like that.
Wow, very, very scary. Okay, good to keep in mind. You've been very busy in the ER. One of the most frequent ailments you've treated is congestive heart failure.
Yeah,
What's
so
going on with
unfortunately,
that?
seeing a lot of that in the last week, especially after Thanksgiving. So congestive heart failure means that your heart is just not very efficiently good at pumping out blood. And so a lot of times that's in patients that have previous heart attacks where the heart is just weaker. And so what happens over Thanksgiving, the holidays, people eat a lot of highly processed foods that are high in sodium, not necessarily table salt, but sodium specifically, and it leads to fluid retention. And then that just adds on to the stress of the heart having to pump out that fluid. So they back up fluid into the lungs, they come to the ER short of breath, leg swelling because of that dietary indiscretion. And so I saw a lot of that in the last week, even just as recently as the last couple of days. So, you know, 4 or 5 days after Thanksgiving.
All right, word to the wise as we head toward Christmas then, and the big meals.
Yeah, I mean, just be careful what you eat. Pay attention to the sodium content. And for people with congestive heart failure, it's also the amount of food that you're eating. You don't want to overwhelm your systems. Just be very careful.
Yeah, it's hard to, you know,
yeah.
refrain from another plate during the holiday season. Okay, we do the Ask the Doctor. We have a question from viewer Rich. He says, what is the recommended age for a 38-year-old man who has a family history of colon cancer to screen? Also, your opinion on those blood tests that are approved by the FDA that you can do at home to catch colon cancer.
Yeah, so this is really important in men, as we've discussed multiple times on here. Colorectal cancer is the #1 killer in this country right now. And so if you have first-degree relatives, so you really want to start at age 40 for screening, or 10 years less than the age at which your first-degree relative was diagnosed. So if you have a relative that was diagnosed at 40 with colon cancer, you need to start at 30. So whatever comes sooner, either that 40 or the 10 years less. And so that's why we dropped that age for everyone down to 45, just because colorectal cancer is on the rise.
Okay.
And regarding the second question, you know, the blood test that was approved this year, it looks for strands of DNA that may be leaking from a growing cancer in your colon or your rectum, and it picks it up in the blood test. But it's not very accurate to pick up those early polyps that are precancerous that may develop into cancer. And so sometimes you do the blood test, it comes back like indeterminate. You're going to end up getting a colonoscopy anyway. Colonoscopy is just still the gold standard for this. It's so important. I know a lot of people are hesitant to do it, but it's just really important. It's so easy to do these days. You're not going to remember anything to put you to sleep. Very accurate. They can take those polyps out, and then you're good.
The prep's worse than the actual procedure.
Oh, 100%. But even as we discussed a couple weeks ago, the prep is much easier now. It's just 12 ounces of fluid that you have to drink along with a lot of water. You just go to the bathroom a lot, 2 times, and then you go to sleep, wake up the next morning, go get your test done, and that's it.
Save your life.
Save your life,
right.
100%.
I love that. Okay, so if you want your question answered by Dr. Daignault, you can send an email to askthedoctor@fox.com or hit him up on social media. Tell everybody where they can find you.
So at Dr. Daignault, Daignault. There
There you go. His Instagram right there on the screen. Thanks so much for being here.